Have you ever paused in the middle of a busy afternoon and paid attention to the commentary running through your mind? Not the conscious thoughts you use to solve a problem or organize your schedule, but the soft, constant hum beneath it all. It is that automatic inner voice that reacts when you make a small mistake, like dropping a set of keys on the floor, missing a turn on your daily driving route, or realizing you forgot to buy a crucial item on your grocery list. Notice how quickly that voice reacts in those quiet, unexpected moments. It usually does not pause to offer grace or understanding. Instead, it offers a quick, sharp critique. You might find yourself thinking, "How could I forget that again?" Or, "I am always so disorganized." Or, "Why can I never just get this right on the first try?" We speak to ourselves with a tone of harshness that we would never dream of using with a dear friend, a coworker, or even a complete stranger standing next to us in line. If a friend dropped their keys or forgot an errand, you would naturally smile, reassure them, and tell them it happens to everyone. You would offer them patience without a second thought. Yet, when it comes to the way you address your own heart and mind, the standard completely changes. You become the harshest judge in the room, holding yourself to an invisible standard of perfection that no human being could ever reasonably maintain. This internal dialogue often runs on autopilot, so deeply ingrained in our daily routine that we hardly even register its weight. We walk through our days carrying a quiet, heavy backpack filled with every self-critical word we have ever whispered to ourselves. We wonder why we feel exhausted by evening, why a small hiccup in our plans feels like a massive defeat, or why it feels so difficult to feel truly at peace in our own skin. The truth is, it is wearying to live with a critic who never takes a day off. It drains your emotional energy to constantly defend yourself against your own inner commentary. Healing does not begin by trying to silence this voice with anger or frustration. That only adds more noise to an already crowded mind. Real change begins the moment you simply notice it. The moment you catch yourself mid-thought, soft and aware, and realize that was a harsh thing to say to someone who is trying their best. In that exact moment of awareness, you create a tiny, beautiful rift in the pattern. You realize that you are not the harsh critique. You are the person listening to it. And you have the power to change what happens next. Learning to love yourself through your own words is a journey of unlearning the impatience you have accumulated over a lifetime. It is about learning to offer yourself the same gentle, patient, and warm presence that you so willingly give to the people you love. Before we dive deeper into understanding where this internal tone comes from and how we can gently begin to transform it, let us take a moment to pause, breathe, and set a new intention together. Please take a slow breath and leave an affirmation in the comments below. I choose to speak to myself with kindness today. Writing those words down, seeing them on the screen, and letting them sit in your heart is the very first meaningful step in taking back the steering wheel of your inner dialogue. The way we speak to ourselves today was not created in a vacuum. It was built slowly, layer by layer, over years of living, observing, and quietly internalizing the world around us. Long before you ever learned to critique yourself, you were listening to how the world reacted to you. Think back to when you were young, learning to master a new skill for the very first time. Perhaps it was learning to ride a bicycle, trying to play an instrument, practicing a sport, or simply trying to solve a tricky math problem at the kitchen table. If the atmosphere around you in those early moments was impatient, demanding, or quick to point out mistakes, your young mind made a quiet note. You began to associate the natural process of learning with intense pressure. You learned that making a mistake was something to be ashamed of, something that invited tension, disappointment, or frustration. Over time, those external reactions faded, but their tone remained. They sank deep into your subconscious, slowly morphing into your own internal baseline. When you encounter a challenge today, whether it is assembling a new piece of furniture, learning complex software for your job, or trying to navigate an unfamiliar situation, that old conditioning resurfaces. The impatience you once heard from others quietly becomes the impatience you now feel toward yourself. You drop something, or you do not understand an instruction immediately, and instantly that familiar knot forms in your stomach. A sharp internal whisper tells you that you should already know how to do this, that you are taking too long, or that you are falling behind. You begin to expect immediate perfection, treating every single learning curve as a personal defect rather than a natural, necessary process of human growth. But take a gentle step back and look at that reaction with clear, compassionate eyes. Is that sharp, impatient voice truly yours? Or is it simply an echo of an old environment you outgrew a long time ago? So many of the harsh words we say to ourselves are nothing more than borrowed phrases. They are old scripts handed down to us by tired parents, stressed teachers, rushed mentors, or a society that values speed over depth. We picked up those scripts when we were too young to know any better, and we have been repeating them out of habit ever since. We carry them around like heavy hand-me-down clothes that were never meant to fit us in the first place. Recognizing this truth is a profound act of liberation. It allows you to realize that your self-talk is not an accurate reflection of your worth, your capability, or who you are today. It is simply a habit of memory. When you catch yourself being hard on yourself while trying something new, you can pause and gently remind yourself, this is just an old script playing back. I do not have to own these words anymore. You are allowed to be a beginner. You are allowed to take your time, to make mess of things while you learn, and to figure things out at your own pace. Unlearning an old script takes patience, but every time you replace an impatient thought with a quiet, understanding breath, you are rewriting your story. You are teaching your mind that it is finally safe to learn without fear. It is so easy to fall into the quiet, exhausting habit of measuring your worth by how seamlessly you manage every single moment of your day. Without even realizing it, we begin to treat ourselves like machines rather than human beings, expecting an endless supply of energy, focus, and emotional composure from morning until night. Consider a simple, deeply relatable evening. You come home after a long, demanding shift at work, or a day filled with constant mental strain. Your mind is foggy, your shoulders are heavy, and your body is completely drained. You walk into your space and look around. You see the stack of unwashed dishes sitting in the sink, the pile of clean laundry waiting to be folded, or a personal hobby project sitting half-finished on the desk that you promised yourself you would work on. Instead of recognizing that your body and mind are crying out for rest, an internal demand immediately takes over. A sharp, relentless voice whispers that you should be doing more, that you are being lazy, or that rest is something you are only allowed to earn once every single item on your invisible list is complete. You sit down on the couch to breathe, but you cannot even enjoy the quiet because your mind is flooding you with guilt. You tell yourself that taking an evening off makes you unmotivated, unfocused, or somehow falling behind in life. This constant, heavy expectation creates an invisible weight that you carry with you everywhere you go. Every uncompleted task, every moment of fatigue, and every boundary your body tries to set becomes evidence in a harsh internal argument against your own effort. You stop looking at what you have actually survived and accomplished throughout the day, and instead, you hyper-focus on the tiny fraction of things left undone. When you demand constant high performance without offering yourself any space for recovery, your internal dialogue turns into a strict, unforgiving supervisor rather than a supportive companion. You end up living in a perpetual state of quiet anxiety, always feeling like you are failing an exam that you never even signed up to take. Why do we treat our limits like flaws? Why is it so hard to accept that exhaustion is not a sign of weakness, but simply a sign that you have been human for too long without a pause? Learning to be better with yourself means actively dismantling these impossible expectations. It means looking at that pile of dishes or that unfinished project and saying to yourself, with genuine warmth, I am tired tonight, and that is completely okay. My worth as a person is not tied to my productivity today. It is understanding that rest is not a reward for finishing everything. It is a basic human necessity that allows you to keep living and healing. When you begin to replace rigid demands with gentle compassion, the heavy weight on your chest starts to lift. You give yourself permission to step off the hamster wheel of endless doing. You start to realize that you do not have to prove your right to exist, rest, and be loved through non-stop achievement. You are allowed to simply be right here, right now, exactly as you are, unfinished tasks and all. Real, lasting transformation within ourselves rarely begins with a sudden, dramatic breakthrough. It does not start with force, strict resolutions, or demanding that we instantly change who we are. Instead, it begins with something much smaller, quieter, and far more profound. A brief, gentle pause. Think about how fast your mind reacts when something unexpected goes wrong in your day. Imagine a simple, familiar moment. You are rushing through your morning, already feeling a bit behind schedule. You reach for a full cup of water or warm tea on the counter. And in a single awkward second, your arm catches the edge. The cup tips, spilling liquid across a freshly cleaned table, dripping down onto the floor, and soaking a stack of important papers you needed for the day. In that exact fraction of a second, an automatic, knee-jerk reaction surges up from deep inside you. Your heart rate spikes, your muscles tense, and before you even have time to process the event logically, a sharp, internal comment slaps you across the mind. Look at what you just did. Why are you always so clumsy? You can't even handle a simple morning without ruining something. That harsh reaction happens so fast, it feels almost natural, like a muscle memory wired directly into your nervous system. But if you slow down and look closely at that moment, you will notice that there is always a tiny, invisible doorway sitting right between the event itself and your emotional reaction to it. What would happen if, in that exact second after the cup spills, you chose not to speak to yourself right away? What if, instead of immediately agreeing with the frustration rising in your chest, you simply paused and took one slow, quiet breath? In that single second of silence, everything changes. You step through that invisible doorway, and suddenly, you regain the power to choose your own words. The spill is still there on the table, yes, but the storm inside your mind stops growing. In that quiet space, you can replace the automatic harshness with a voice of soft, grounded reality. You can say to yourself with genuine warmth and calmness, "It was just an accident. My hands were full, and I was rushing. Water cleans up easily, and my day is not ruined." Notice how different those two internal responses feel in your body. The first one tightens your chest, fills you with shame, and sets a dark, defensive tone for the rest of your day. The second one releases the tension in your shoulders, soothes your nervous system, and treats you like a human being who simply bumped a cup. Practicing the art of pausing before reacting is not about pretending that frustrating things never happen. It is not about suppressing your feelings or wearing a fake smile when you are stressed. It is simply about giving yourself grace before you pass judgment on your own heart. It is the conscious decision to stop treating every small mistake as a personal character flaw. You do not need to overhaul your entire personality overnight to start loving yourself through your words. Healing happens in these tiny, everyday moments. It happens when you drop your keys, stumble over a word, forget an item, or make a wrong turn, and choose to take a slow breath before speaking to yourself. When you cultivate that brief pause, you teach your mind a beautiful new truth, that you deserve patience, composure, and gentleness, especially when things do not go as planned. What happens when you stand in front of a mirror in the quiet of your room, perhaps before the rush of the morning fully begins? For so many of us, the experience of looking at our own reflection is loaded with an instant, silent tension. Before you even have a chance to register the person standing there, your mind has already zoomed in like a camera lens searching for flaws. Your gaze bypasses the warmth in your expression, the life in your posture, or the resilience behind your eyes, going straight toward the things you wish were different. You notice the tired shadows underneath your eyes after a sleepless week, the faint lines around your mouth from the worries you have carried, or a strand of hair that refuses to lay flat. We examine ourselves with the critical, unforgiving eye of an inspector looking for manufacturing defects, rather than simply seeing a living, breathing human being who is doing the absolute best they can. Think about how heartbreakingly conditional our relationship with our own reflection has become. When we feel rested, confident, or happy with how things are going, looking in the mirror feels easy, almost pleasant. But the moment life gets heavy, the moment we feel worn down, insecure, or overwhelmed, the mirror becomes a place of quiet avoidance. We rush through our routines, refusing to meet our own gaze, as if looking too closely at ourselves will reveal some kind of personal failure. We treat our faces like problem areas that need constant fixing, managing, or concealing from the world. We critique the way we age, the way our expressions shift, and the physical traces that stress leaves behind on our skin, as though every single mark of living is something to be ashamed of, rather than a testament to the fact that we have survived and grown through real-world experiences. But what would it look like to change that gaze? What if, instead of searching for things to critique, you decided to look into your own eyes with the same tenderness, curiosity, and unconditional acceptance you would offer to someone you deeply love? Your face tells a rich, beautiful story of endurance, laughter, quiet tears, and growth. Those lines around your mouth are not flaws. They are the physical map of every time you chose to smile through a hard day or shared a genuine laugh with a friend. Those tired eyes are evidence of a mind that cares deeply, that thinks, that feels, and that navigates the intricate, unpredictable currents of everyday life. You are so much more than a collection of surface features to be evaluated, rated, or fixed. Shifting how we look at ourselves requires a deep, honest willingness to meet our own vulnerabilities without running away. It means acknowledging that within every single one of us, there are parts of our history, our emotional wounds, and our insecurities that we prefer to keep hidden in the shadows. We often spend so much energy trying to project a flawless exterior to the world because we are terrified that if anyone saw our vulnerabilities, they would judge us. Yet, true peace does not come from pretending those fragile parts do not exist. It comes from turning toward them with an open heart. This deep human truth was reflected on by the renowned psychologist Carl Jung, who once observed a profound reality about how we connect with our inner depth. As he famously remarked, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. Notice how seamlessly that wisdom bridges the gap between our internal world and how we treat ourselves. When we apply this perspective to our everyday self-talk, we begin to understand a liberating reality. The parts of yourself that feel uncomfortable, the moments of insecurity, the self-doubt, and the tired spaces inside your mind are not things to be feared or aggressively suppressed. They are simply part of the shared human experience. When you stop fighting your own vulnerabilities and instead look at them with quiet compassion, your entire relationship with yourself begins to transform. Embracing the parts of ourselves that feel less than ideal frees us from the exhausting daily burden of hiding or judging them. The next time you stand before a mirror, try an experiment in radical gentleness. Instead of scanning for imperfections, take a slow, deep breath. Look directly into your own eyes and offer yourself a quiet nod of recognition. Remind yourself that the person looking back at you has survived every single hard day up to this exact moment. You are worthy of love, patience, and kindness, exactly as you are, right here in the reflection. Pay attention to how often the word should quietly slips into your thoughts throughout the course of a single day. I should have finished reading that chapter. I should be further along in my career by now. I should have handled that conversation with more patience. Or, I should feel happier and more grateful than I do right now. The word should seems harmless on the surface, but underneath, it carries a heavy, rigid obligation. It is a tiny, sharp word that carries an implicit accusation. It tells you that where you currently are, how you currently feel, and what you are currently capable of doing is simply not good enough. It constantly compares your reality to an idealized, perfect version of yourself that does not exist. When you live under the constant rule of should, your entire inner life becomes a series of unpaid debts. You walk through your day feeling perpetually behind, as though you are constantly falling short of a standard you never actually agreed to set. Every unfulfilled should becomes a tiny weight added to your shoulders, until even simple, everyday tasks start to feel like immense, overwhelming burdens. Consider what happens inside your body when you say to yourself, I should finish all this work tonight, no matter how tired I am. Your shoulders tense, your breath becomes shallow, and a quiet wave of anxiety settles into your chest. You are demanding performance from a system, your body and your heart, that is already running on empty. What would happen if you began to gently replace these rigid demands with the warmth of permission? Replacing should with softer, more permissive language opens up immediate breathing space for realistic, compassionate living. Try catching yourself in the middle of a demanding thought and shifting the wording. Instead of telling yourself, I should finish everything on my list tonight, try saying, I am choosing to do what I can with the energy I have right now, and I am giving myself full permission to leave the rest for tomorrow. Notice the immediate physical and emotional shift that happens when you make that gentle adjustment. The invisible knot in your stomach begins to loosen. Your breath drops deeper into your lungs. Language has a direct, profound impact on how your body holds stress. Demands trigger a fight or flight response within our nervous system, while permission signals safety, rest, and ease. Giving yourself permission is not about being lazy, giving up on your goals, or avoiding responsibility. It is about honoring your real, human capacity in the present moment. It is recognizing that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and that pushing yourself past your breaking point through harsh self-talk is not sustainable or loving. You are allowed to have days where your progress is slow. You are allowed to feel tired without having to justify it. You are allowed to take a break even when there are still things left to do. By replacing demanding language with permissive language, you stop treating yourself like a taskmaster and start treating yourself like a dear friend. You give yourself the room needed to move through your day with steady, forgiving grace. Imagine spending an hour carefully preparing a meal, only to get distracted for a brief moment and overcook it, leaving it burnt and ruined on the stove. Or picture spending days practicing a presentation for work or school, replaying the lines in your head over and over, only to stumble and stutter during the very first sentence. In those immediate moments of frustration, the default internal reaction often steps in with absolute harshness. It frames these minor setbacks as complete and total defeats, whispering cruel generalizations into your mind. It tells you that your effort was a total waste, that you always mess things up when it matters most, or that you are simply not smart, capable, or composed enough to succeed. That internal reaction takes a single, isolated event and expands it into a sweeping judgment about your entire character. Suddenly, a burnt dinner is no longer just ruined food. It becomes proof that you are disorganized and incapable. A stumbled sentence is no longer just a momentary lapse in speech. It becomes proof that you are unqualified or foolish. We carry the heavy emotional weight of these tiny failures long after the moment has passed, letting them taint our mood and chip away at our confidence. But what happens when you step back and choose a gentler, more factual internal narrative? A soft heart views setbacks not as tragic reflections of worth, but as entirely neutral, highly informative moments in time. A burnt meal simply means the burner temperature was too high or left unattended a few minutes too long. A stumbled sentence simply means your heart was beating a little fast, your breathing was rushed, or your body was experiencing natural nerves. Neither of those events defines your value, your intelligence, or your ultimate capability as a human being. They are just moments that happened, nothing more and nothing less. When you deliberately reframe these everyday occurrences with factual, kind language, you instantly strip away the sharp emotional sting of feeling inadequate. You stop turning small, honest human mistakes into dramatic trials of your personal worth. Instead of saying, "I ruined everything, I am so useless," you train your voice to quietly say, "That did not go the way I planned, but it is okay. I am human, I am learning, and I can handle this." Notice the immense relief that simple shift brings. It changes your inner atmosphere from one of hostility and shame into one of safety and resilience. You begin to treat mistakes not as shameful flaws or reflections of your character, but as standard, completely normal events that every single person on this earth experiences. You realize that perfection was never the goal, and that making a mistake does not mean you have failed. It simply means you are actively participating in life. Giving yourself permission to encounter setbacks without turning your own words against yourself is one of the highest forms of love you can ever offer your heart. Growth is rarely linear, and it is almost always invisible while it is happening. We live in a world that demands instant evidence, clear results, visible changes, and quick transformations that can be measured and put on display. Because of this, it becomes heartbreakingly easy to look at your own life and feel like you are standing completely still. You might have days where an old fear catches you off guard, where a wave of stress knocks you off balance, or where you find yourself reacting to a situation with the same anxiety you thought you had outgrown months ago. In those moments, a harsh inner voice quickly steps in to tell you that you haven't changed at all, that all your effort was for nothing, and that you are right back at square one. But take a deep breath and consider the quiet, hidden processes of nature. Think about planting a small flower seed in soft, dark soil. You place it beneath the surface, cover it up, and water it gently every single day. For weeks, you look at that patch of earth, and nothing appears on the surface. If you were to evaluate the seed's progress based solely on what is visible to your eyes, you might easily assume that nothing is happening at all, that the seed has failed, or that your efforts were a waste of time. Yet, beneath that quiet layer of earth, something profound is taking place. The seed is breaking open. Roots are extending deep into the ground, searching for nourishment, anchoring themselves, and building the necessary, invisible foundation that will eventually support a blossom above the surface. Without those long, quiet weeks of unseen growth in the dark, the stem would never have the strength to stand tall in the sunlight. The exact same gentle process applies to your personal healing, your self-discovery, and your inner growth. Just because you felt overwhelmed today or had to take a step back to rest does not mean you have lost all your progress. Healing is not a straight line that goes continuously upward without a single dip. It is a slow, rhythmic journey of gentle cycles. There will be quiet seasons where your growth happens entirely beneath the surface, where you are simply learning how to breathe through hard moments, how to speak a little softer to your heart, and how to stay grounded when the world feels loud. You cannot judge your progress by a single difficult day, just like you cannot judge a seed by the quiet earth above it. Looking at human development through a broader, more compassionate lens helps us appreciate these quiet, invisible stages. Every person carries their own history, their own rhythm, and their own unique way of processing the world around them. The psychologist Carl Jung reflected deeply on this when he wrote, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Notice the profound grace living within those words. There is no single timeline you are supposed to be following. There is no standard blueprint for how quickly you ought to heal, how fast your confidence should grow, or what your path should look like compared to anyone else's. When you try to force your heart to fit into someone else's timeline, the shoe will always pinch. Your journey carries its own unique rhythm, and your inner dialogue should honor that individual pace without comparing it to anyone else's path. So when you feel like you aren't moving fast enough, try to speak to yourself with the tenderness of someone who understands how deep roots grow. Remind yourself that every quiet moment of patience, every time you choose kindness over criticism, and every time you forgive yourself for being human, you are laying down roots. You are growing, even on the days you cannot see it. Trust the quiet wisdom of your own timeline, and give yourself room to bloom in your own time. Building a softer, kinder inner voice requires consistent, daily practice, much like building physical strength or learning to play an instrument. It is not something that happens automatically after a single moment of realization. Rather, it is built through small, repeated moments of intentional reassurance that you offer yourself throughout the day. Think about how we navigate our daily routines. We often move through our schedules on complete autopilot, lost in the rush of responsibilities, noise, and expectations. But within every ordinary day, there are quiet, unassuming pockets of time that we usually overlook. Consider those small moments, waiting patiently for a kettle of tea to brew on the stove, standing by the window as the morning light fills the room, sitting quietly in your parked car for a minute before heading into a store, or taking a brief walk outside during an afternoon break. These quiet interludes are fragile, beautiful opportunities. Instead of filling them with scrolling, worrying, or replaying past conversations, you can turn them into gentle rituals of connection with your own heart. In those stillness-filled pauses, actively practice offering yourself reassurance. When anxiety creeps into your chest, when self-doubt whispers that you are not doing enough, or when the weight of the day starts to feel overwhelming, notice how your mind wants to react. Rather than letting the fear take control, step in as a protective, grounding presence. Speak to yourself in those moments as you would speak to a trusted, dear friend who has come to you for comfort, with a warm voice, an open heart, and zero judgment. You can say to yourself internally, with gentle sincerity, "You are handling this as best as you can right now," or "It is okay to take things one step at a time," or "You do not have to have everything figured out today." Feel the physical impact of those words as they land inside you. Notice how your breathing opens up, how your shoulders naturally sink down away from your ears, and how the tight knot of tension in your chest begins to dissolve. Offering yourself daily reassurance is not about pretending that life is easy or that problems do not exist. It is not about lying to yourself or putting on a brave face when you feel broken. It is simply about choosing to treat yourself with dignity and grace while you walk through the hard things. It is promising your heart that no matter how loud, chaotic, or difficult the world gets outside, the world inside your mind will remain a place of safety, warmth, and understanding. Over time, these repeated acts of spoken gentleness do something incredible to your spirit. They slowly rewire your automatic, default reactions. The harsh, critical voice that used to take over during moments of stress starts to lose its grip, replaced by a quiet, steady rhythm of compassion. Warmth becomes your natural, effortless response to pressure. You begin to trust that whenever you stumble, slip up, or feel afraid, your own inner voice will be there to catch you. Not with critique, but with open arms and steady, comforting words. At the end of the day, when the noise of the world settles and the constant busyness fades away, the relationship you hold with yourself is the most consistent, enduring presence in your life. External circumstances will inevitably shift. Environments will change, and relationships with others will naturally go through seasons of ebb and flow. People come and go, plans fall apart, and life moves in unexpected directions. But through every single high and low, through every joy and every heartache, your internal dialogue remains constant. It is the one voice that accompanies you through every single second of your existence. Ask yourself honestly, what kind of environment have you been creating inside your own mind? Has it been a place of constant criticism, judgment, and pressure? Or has it been a place where your heart can actually rest, heal, and catch its breath? When you learn to speak to yourself with genuine patience, deep understanding, and steady kindness, something truly magical happens. You turn your internal mindscape into a true, safe harbor. You become the sanctuary you used to search for in other people, in achievements, or in external validation. You no longer have to live in perpetual fear of making a mistake, stumbling in public, or encountering an unexpected setback. Why? Because you finally know, deep in your bones, that when you fail or fall short, your internal voice will not kick you while you are down. It will receive you with open arms, soft comfort, and gentle support, rather than harsh, unforgiving judgment. Imagine what it feels like to navigate life knowing that your own mind has your back. Imagine making a mistake at work, having a hard day, or feeling deeply hurt. And instead of spiraling into self-blame, you hear a calm, gentle voice inside saying, "I am right here with you. We are going to get through this together. You are safe, you are worthy, and you are loved." That shift changes everything. It takes away the terrifying power that external failure used to hold over you, replacing it with an unshakable inner peace. Becoming your own safe harbor does not mean you will never feel sad, anxious, disappointed, or lost again. It simply means that when those heavy emotional storms inevitably roll through your life, you carry a solid, warm shelter inside yourself. You stop running away from your vulnerabilities and start sitting with them like a good friend who refuses to leave your side. You learn that you do not need to be perfect to be worthy of your own love and respect. As you step forward into your tomorrow, carry this truth close to your heart. Remember that being softer with yourself is not a luxury, an afterthought, or a sign of weakness. It is the absolute foundation of genuine self-discovery, emotional healing, and enduring peace. The way you speak to yourself sets the boundary for how you experience the world. So take a gentle, deep breath. Let the tension drop from your shoulders. Speak softly to your heart, and trust the quiet, healing wisdom of your own words. As our journey together draws to a quiet close, take a moment to simply sit with yourself in this space. Notice the room around you, the gentle rhythm of your breathing, and the subtle shift in the air when you allow yourself to slow down. We have walked through the hidden corners of our inner worlds, illuminating the quiet noise of old conditioning, the heavy burden of impossible expectations, and the protective walls we construct with harsh self-talk. We have explored what it truly means to pause before reacting, to meet our own gaze in the mirror with compassion, to trade rigid demands for soft permission, and to treat our daily setbacks not as failures, but as quiet, neutral moments of learning. If there is one truth to carry forward from everything we have shared, it is this: the words you choose to speak to yourself are not merely passive thoughts floating through your mind. They are the actual foundation of your internal environment. They build the emotional atmosphere in which your heart lives, rests, and heals. When you flood that space with criticism, judgment, and impatience, it becomes an exhausting, cold place to inhabit. But when you begin to intentionally offer yourself soft, understanding, and patient words, you transform your internal mindscape into a sanctuary, a place where you can catch your breath, grow at your own pace, and feel genuinely safe in your own skin. Healing your relationship with your inner voice is not something that happens overnight through a single, grand act of willpower. It is a slow, quiet art built upon 1,000 tiny decisions made in the privacy of your ordinary days. It happens in those small, unassuming moments when life gets a little messy. When you spill a drink, drop your keys, stumble over your words in a conversation, or feel completely overwhelmed by a long list of tasks. In those exact seconds, when the old, familiar urge to critique yourself rises up, you now have a choice. You can step into that brief, beautiful pause, take a slow breath, and choose a gentler response. You can look at your own human limits and say, "It is okay. I am doing the best I can right now, and that is enough." So often, we wait for the world outside us to offer us the peace, validation, and gentleness we crave. We wait for external circumstances to settle down, for other people to understand us, or for our lives to become completely organized before we allow ourselves to feel at peace. But external certainty is fragile and fleeting. Relationships shift, plans fall apart, and the world outside will always be unpredictable and loud, real enduring peace can only ever be cultivated from within. It begins when you decide that no matter what storm is brewing on the outside, you will no longer create a storm on the inside. It begins when you commit to becoming your own calm, supportive harbor. As you step away from this listening experience and return to the flow of your daily life, remember to carry this softness with you into your routine. Be soft with yourself when you feel tired after a long day. Be soft with yourself when you make a mistake or take a wrong turn. Be soft with yourself on the days when progress feels invisible, trusting that beneath the surface, your roots are growing deeper and stronger than you know. You do not need to be perfect to be worthy of your own love, patience, and respect. You are allowed to be a living, breathing work in progress, imperfect, vulnerable, learning, and deeply human all at once. Before you go on with the rest of your day, let us take one final, deep breath together. Inhale slowly, letting your lungs expand and your heart soften. And exhale fully, letting go of any lingering tension in your shoulders. To anchor this gentle intention in your heart and share this healing energy with everyone navigating their own journey alongside us, take a moment right now to drop down into the comments below and write your own affirmation. Leave a line that reflects the softness you want to offer your heart today. Perhaps something simple, like, I promise to meet myself with patience, and I choose to let my inner voice be my softest place to land. Thank you for sharing this quiet space, for honoring your own growth, and for having the courage to speak a little softer to your heart. Trust the quiet wisdom of your journey. Take things one gentle step at a time, and always remember to be soft with yourself.